Welcome everyone to the Fighting Dementia podcast. I'm Leon, one of the co-hosts, and we're a podcast for those in the early to middle stage of the disease, helping people who are living with dementia or supporting the people who support those living with dementia. We're here to talk about behaviour change, how you can live well with dementia, and help you on your own journey. And I do this alongside my co-hosts, Fran and Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom. I was diagnosed with dementia 8 years ago, and I do this podcast to try and help. If I can help just one person by doing this podcast, I've done something good, and I really enjoy this podcast.
Hiya, I'm Fran. I was diagnosed 5 years ago with mixed dementia. I've got vascular dementia and also Alzheimer's. I'm here to help you navigate through your dementia journey.
Welcome everyone to the Fighting Dementia podcast. I'm here with Fran and Dr. Grahame Smith. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And call me Grahame, don't call me Dr. Grahame. So.
Okay, no problem. I'm here with Grahame and Fran. So regular listeners will notice Tom's missing. Him
On his jolly holes.
Johnny Holes, yeah. So he's currently in Greek island for a couple of weeks. So lucky him.
Absolutely.
Lucky him.
So we've asked Grahame to step in, who, for people who've been following us since season 1, was on the show where we interviewed you, and you were one of the first experts to come on and talk about living well with dementia. And I think that where we've ended up on the podcast has been in large part because of that conversation and others, and obviously meeting you, Fran and Tom.
Yeah.
And it's so it's a pleasure to have you back on.
It's great being here. Thank you very much for having me. I think it's important to recognise that when you use the term expert, I'm not living with dementia.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
So I'm kind of an expert from the outside.
Yeah. Do you want to
whatever
give us,
that means.
Do you want to give us a bit of your bio in terms of who you are for people who hadn't watched before?
Yeah, so lovely to meet everybody. So I'm Grahame Smith. I'm a associate professor in mental health innovation at Liverpool John Moores University, and we run what we call a living lab. So it's the Centre for Collaborative Innovation in Dementia, and effectively what we do is we work with people living with dementia and also other conditions. So we started out in the dementia space to support people with dementia to develop solutions to their everyday challenges. So that could be co-creating an app, to co-creating a dementia-friendly bungalow, to a specific therapy like dementia reablement, for example. Lots of things. I can't mention all of them. Maybe I can't remember all of them actually in that sense. That's kind of what I do. I'm a mental health nurse by background. I've worked in the mental health field for 40 years. I know I don't look it, but 40 years. So I'm semi-retired and slowly walking out the door and leaving the younger people to come through and take the baton like on.
You look like you really enjoy it, and you've enjoyed what you've been doing. What's the best part about helping people and trying to make people with dementia and Alzheimer's and all the different types? And you said you worked with patients who've got MND and all different brain problems. Have you found that really interesting?
Yeah, because I suppose it comes down to the person-centred side of things.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit like a detective in some ways. I'm very interested in people. I'm a people person and fascinated by people living their lives more than anything else. And as a mental health nurse, I've spent a lot of time observing and then asking questions because you can interpret behaviours, but you don't know other people's minds unless you ask
behind the behaviour,
unless you ask the questions. Yeah. So it's a bit of that, and also I could go back 10 years now, and I was at we ran a big project called Innovate Dementia, which was across Northwest Europe, and I thought that building apps and dementia-friendly bungalows and exercise programs was really what it was all about. But actually, people living with dementia talked about being involved
Yeah.
and being listened to and having hope and value.
Yeah.
So I've kind of realised that that's more important than the big research outcomes sometimes that we think that people want. And sometimes that's because research outcomes take ages to impact on communities, whereas that emotional sense of being involved, being included, being listened to is immediate.
Yeah.
And that value is really, really important. So that's kind of what I love, really, from that perspective. It goes back to caring and compassion, doesn't it, more than anything
it does.
else?
I think people, I've forgotten what I'm going to say. What did you just say, the last little bit that you were talking about?
Talking about caring and compassion and listening to people.
Yeah, and I think that's what people need. They need, people who are diagnosed with these diseases need someone to listen. They can't, they know that you can't always direct them in the right way, or you can't do, we can't do everything and you can't do everything, but it's nice to know, because there's so many people out there who don't have anyone to listen to, who will listen to them. And there's, as you say, you can do research and that takes such a long time to come into place. It's about funding, it's about getting the people, then it's the legalities of it. There's so many different issues around it. So then you've got to wait, like you say, for the results of that. And then by that time, things have changed again dramatically within dementia. Medications change, the way we treat people, the way we talk to them, the behaviour changes that we need to make. There's so many different things there, and I feel sad for the people who don't have the opportunity to come to someone like yourself or to come to people, because they don't know it's out there and they don't know it's available.
Yeah.
Because it's not broadcast enough. And the other thing is the people who have the brain disease, whatever it is, more so with dementia diseases, they just don't know what to do. And some of them are underdiagnosed. So you've got, we were saying before, there's so many types of dementia. So how does every health profession know all these types of dementia? There's hundreds. So people aren't always diagnosed correctly, or they're underdiagnosed.
Yeah, and dementia or diagnosis is a term, is obviously a diagnostic term. It says very little about the person.
Yeah.
And the idea of any kind of therapeutic approach is to think about the person as in who they are, what they are, in a holistic sense.
Holistically, yeah.
And it's really important to focus on that, because some of the things you talked about impact upon people that don't have dementia. And the interesting thing about dementia is that we tend to think it's an old age issue.
Yeah.
We forget that it's also a public health prevention issue. So there are lots of brain health things that people can do in their lives that will have a positive impact, or be what they call a protective factor. So there are risk factors for dementia. Doesn't mean because you have those risk factors you're necessarily going to have dementia, and it doesn't mean that if you always follow the protective factors, and you could argue it tends to arrest the condition in some way. So that's about brain health.
Yeah.
It's about looking after yourself. So it doesn't matter whether you've got dementia or not. It's about looking after your physical side, but also your mental side. So what's interesting is we don't go to the gym, do we, to work our minds out as such.
No.
So we use terms nowadays called mindfulness, for example, which if we look back to the 1950s and 60s around meditation, mindfulness that we practice now is really the first part of concentration. So what we're saying is we need to teach people to concentrate, to focus, because we get easily distracted.
Yeah.
And anybody can do that in relation to concentration. That doesn't, the mindfulness type techniques can work with children to a point if they engage. And engagement is really important.
It is, yeah.
It can work with adults and older adults as well. For some, it works. I know people that don't engage with it and can't engage with it, and it's not something that it works for them, and that's fine. Sometimes you need to work out what works for what works
Absolutely.
for you.
As you're both talking, I'm just thinking about the episode from last week with George, and if you put sort of his lived experience of the last 11 years, him talking about painting and listening to music, his aspect of being so involved in the dementia community and feeling listened to and feeling driven by that desire to make an impact, and then you piece it together with everything you two have just been talking about. I mean, it's like the perfect mix of how you can think about living with dementia. So if you are in the earlier stage or in the middle stages, there is so much you can do. And I know that you, Fran, have started drinking a bit more water since we've started talking about behaviour change. You've changed your diet, and walking in here, you were saying, "Oh, I'm feeling much better," and you've got more energy. And
yeah, it's true. I was a bit slow coming to it because sometimes you forget to drink.
Mm-hmm.
You don't automatically do it on purpose. But now I've made a conscious decision to make sure that I drink X amount and that I've cut out a lot of things from my diet that, are just ridiculous. But again, like you're saying, doesn't fit for some people because and lots of people have no sense of taste or sense of smell. So for them and us to change our diet. And the other thing is that you'd have a terrible sweet tooth, which is part the way your brain thinks and part the way it doesn't think because of the way you are. I know that sounds ridiculous, but so I just thought, right, I'll eat that just to see what it's like. And I couldn't taste it anyway, as I've said before, but it was just the feeling of eating a piece of cake. And
you mentioned about the memory with the whole nut chocolate, that you had great memories of that tasting nice.
Yeah.
And so that instead of thinking I'll have dark chocolate because it's a bit healthier, you don't get that same feeling when you eat a piece of dark chocolate because it's not. But when you have that whole nut, it brings back a feeling, even though you're not necessarily tasting it, which is like fascinating to think about. We'll get a nutritional expert at some point, or someone who understands nutrition and dementia and how that could be looked at or how that could be thought of. Because I don't know if you've got any opinions there, Grahame, on that side, but it seems like a complex issue because there's like part of its enjoyment, isn't it? If you enjoy that little piece of chocolate or whatever, well, then that's also part of your overall mental health, isn't it?
I haven't ate a piece for 2 weeks.
Well, there you go.
Well, I couldn't live without
concentrated.
chocolate. You can't say I couldn't. Because I believe, was it Gary Rhodes was in a road traffic accident. He had to retrain himself. I think he's died now, hasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he had to retrain because I think he lost the ability to, was it taste or smell? It's all part of the same process. And he had to retrain himself. And as a chef, you can imagine that.
Devastating.
The impact. So I suppose it depends on the condition more than anything else. But there's something about taste is also about texture as well, isn't it?
That's what I said to you, didn't I? It's the texture of the stuff.
Yeah, so that plays into it. I suppose the important thing for you is to think, journaling and diaries and stuff like that, or your story, your life, is to make sure that you focus on things that work for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are things that you don't want to do, but you should do.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you sometimes can't be a bit naughty and do things.
Definitely.
That you enjoy as such. Yeah. So, it's about that balanced type approach, isn't it, in life? We talk about just the thing that people talk about, and all things in moderation. But it is that balance. So as you get older, there is the need to eat fat, for example, because a lot of vitamins and nutrients are fat soluble. And the brain requires a lot of fat as well at times. So there's that kind of balance. So one thing to be cautious about is saying, well, I'm not going to eat fats. It's
Yeah.
the types of fats.
Yeah, because you need them to make olive oils and things.
Absolutely. So you do need things. And water's important. One, because obviously there's something about flushing things out and keeping things going. But also, if you get very anxious, it flushes some of those chemicals out as well. So breathing and drinking water is a good mental health strategy because, of course, that has a positive impact in relation to your physiology around anxiety as well.
Yeah.
So absolutely, drinking water is really, really important in that sense.
Well, I'm on board now.
Very good.
You are right.
But don't drink too much.
No, I don't.
Don't drink gallons.
No, I couldn't do
you're
that.
all right then.
Yeah,
Drown myself.
I was reading up on that, and a lot of it is about sort of for you monitoring your wee and the colour of that wee, and knowing whether it's too much or too little water through. It's not nice to talk about, but it's kind of the only way that you can know what your body needs in terms of water.
It goes from dark, lighter.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
because there's weight, there's other factors at age, isn't there? And if you just say, right, the recommendation is 3 litres a day, well, for you that might not be correct. And it's about monitoring, isn't it? Sort of the colour and how many glasses of water or how much you should drink in a day.
And dehydration is a challenge for older adults. We talk about it in relation to dementia. It's a challenge for older adults to make sure they stay hydrated.
And don't get infections, because then a lot of people
absolutely.
get delirium, don't they? And there's so many problems around about getting an infection when you're older, and when you've got something like dementia, MND, what you're saying, all different diseases. It's not a good thing to have, is it? So if you're drinking water, it doesn't mean to say that's going to go away, but at least you're getting less of a chance of picking something up, aren't you?
And it's great to hear that you, Fran, have sort of taken that on board through us doing these podcasts. And we hope that there's listeners of people living with dementia that have, because it's almost been like 4 or 5 weeks. We've talked about it every week.
Not talking about it next week.
Because, all right, boss. But when you say, drink more water, and we talked about implementation intention, and we'll show some of the labels that we've created in a second. But, even that topic alone and why we've talked about it for 4 or 5 weeks is because it's just not as simple as saying, drink more water, is it? Like any sort of behaviour change, it's quite complex. So I was interested from your perspective, Grahame, what you've seen in terms of behaviour change and looking at all the other behavioural science around, like implementation, intention, those types of things. How have you seen it the last 10 or so years when you're trying to impart either new technologies or new therapeutics or whatever? How have you found that process when it comes to behaviour change with people for dementia?
I think because the conversation is out there, then if I go back, 10 years when we started the Innovate Dementia project, it was psychiatrists believed that people with dementia couldn't engage with new skills, couldn't use computers.
Wow.
And there was elements of people saying that. It was very much, well, you've got dementia and your world shrunk. And have individuals that who live with dementia have talked about that. The world shrunk, and it's very much that is my life over? And that's a big anxiety for the over 55s in relation to dementia. Having those conversations in a positive way is something that I've noticed over probably the last 5 years. We've moved away from anxiety and using terms like plague, which is a really negative term, and I kind of dislike that.
I don't like that.
And that's something that's been that
brings
been
all
on
kinds into your
absolutely
mind.
been on the television, and it's a shame really, because there's a lot of negativity there.
Yeah.
We, I think of an advert where talking about a specific chocolate bar, And there are other adverts where people are talking about dementia and they are selling products. And you might say, well, should you not? But actually, the conversation's out there, even in adverts and on soaps and different things like that. But there's still an element of sadness about it. There's still an element of, you've got dementia and you're going to forget things and that's your life and you're going to lose some of yourself. And not that yourself is actually transforming in some way, that there's an opportunity to be something different.
Yeah.
And I'm not diminishing the challenges, the behavioural challenges that people experience, certainly relatives of people living with dementia. I can always remember somebody diagnosed with dementia saying, I don't suffer. When you say suffering with dementia, I don't suffer. It's my relatives that see those things. It's not me that's suffering in that sense. So I'm certainly not diminishing that by any stretch of the imagination. But there is hope, and that's really important. There is hope that people can move forward and have a great positive life. And some of the challenges that are barriers are related to society, not
Other people,
you can have dementia and you can have a bit of money and you can have choice. It may well be that you have dementia and you don't have a bit of money and you're restricted in terms of your choices. So sometimes it's not about the condition itself. That may well be about the person's position in society. And yet there are so many networks out there. There are so many support, voluntary type networks that can assist individuals to move forward as well. Things like this, for example, don't cost anything. And there are positive messages in that. There are individuals whose experiences you can learn from, and it doesn't cost anything. For some individuals, they're not digitally literate, and they don't always catch into these podcasts and things. But that's changing massively. If I'd have said, 10, 15 years ago, put your smartphone on the table, we were developing an app, the House of Memories app. And big conversations about, do we need buttons or do we need this or do we need that in relation to hardware? This is people with dementia and relatives. And then probably just a few years later, we were looking at other apps. And people were putting the smartphones on the table. The world had changed.
Absolutely.
And, there's more connectivity in that sense. So there is positivity. You've just gone and switched your phone off before we came in because we're all phone's part of us, isn't it? But it's also a way of connecting. And you, Leon, needed to know the Wi-Fi code so you could start using that way to connect with the world. So that has changed tremendously, and that's helped some individuals move forward in that kind of way.
And people are younger with dementia, like we were saying before, young onset dementia. So they're used to all those things. Older people, a lot know because of their family use them and stuff like that. But a lot of older people won't use anything like that. Mm-hmm. It's always, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be messing with that. You do get some older people who do use it, but it's so different now, the generation, to what it was previous for people with. It wasn't even diagnosed as dementia at that time. It was just old age or getting older. And I think we've said before now, people are getting older now because of everything that's, medication, just so many different aspects of staying alive, aren't there?
People are living longer,
Yeah. So, but I think, like you're saying, the people like myself who was diagnosed as a young onset dementia, we're a bit more savvy about things. And not just me, there's lots of people out there, the group that I go to and the people that I meet, we're really geared up to, we know we've got a change in our life, like you mentioned before, but we've took it on board like the bloke last week. And, we're running with it now. It's changed my life, which it would do. But it hasn't changed it for the worst. It's changed it in lots of ways for the better, because I've got totally new perspective on life and a total new ideas and, what's going to happen. And, I know part of my life is mapped out now with what I've got, but not all of it is, because I've got the opportunity to do things like this. I've still got all my friends. And as that bloke was saying, he's got lots of new friends now.
Yeah.
Well, I have.
It's a huge part of his life.
And I do so much. And that's because I want to do it, because it's a bit exciting, to be honest.
Yeah.
You get a bit excited
within the next
about
year,
it.
you'll be on the One Show, won't you?
Yeah.
With,
I've only managed BBC One now. Done all the papers, I think, and all the magazines.
So yeah, next is the BBC for you.
Yeah.
Cool. We hope you're enjoying this episode. If you've got any questions, please do leave us a comment on social media.
We're more than happy to answer any questions from our personal experience. And we'd be happy to do that if you had any. And if we don't know the answer, then we'll go and find the information for you.
We certainly will.
I mentioned the stickers that we created, so I was hoping to actually show the audience them. But what we'll do
Here's
is
one.
we'll there we go. So yeah, we've got, this is one of the implementation intention stickers that we're going to give away for free. So we will hopefully have these in our hands next week and printed to look over. So this one is like as if we're basically going to have a big white area that you can write whatever you want on. So whether it's putting it on a certain food cupboard. So yeah, we're just getting up the other one. So this is how the stickers will look. And what we'd like to do is print 1,000 and we'll send 5 for free to everyone who would like one. So you'll be able to get in touch with us by the email address, which is hello@fightingdementiapod.com. And if you'd like some. And I think the whole thing is like a little reminder that you're not fighting alone. There's other people that are looking at changing their behaviour, like Fran is with the water and diet and things. And that, you aren't fighting this alone. And I think that's a really important message that we're hearing from George, that we're hearing from you, from Tom, that if you can find community, and hopefully this podcast is one of those communities that you can feel part of, that you aren't fighting this disease alone. And if you can do it from really early on in your diagnosis, look at behaviour change, look at the research, hear from some experts that we've got on here, then it's not all doom and gloom. And I think there can be a lot of anxiety, like you said, depression, an idea that you have to pull back from hobbies. Tom, who's our normal co-host, had stopped cycling the moment he got diagnosed with dementia, because he said, well, I can't cycle anymore. And that was 8 years ago. And this summer, 8 years ago, next month or this month, I think that's why they've gone on holiday, to sort of celebrate, I guess, 8 years since diagnosis. That was 8 years ago he gave up cycling, and in July he rode 27 miles from the Birkenhead Tunnel to Chester for cancer research. So,
and he got a job, didn't he, as well?
And he works, 20 hours a week in a pub, cleaning. So, it just shows you that sort of that idea about being depressed about it and thinking that your world's small and that you have to give up things, it really isn't like that. And George who was on last week, was saying that he was told 3 things, and one of them was don't take risks. And that was what he got told when he was diagnosed.
So he decided to.
So he decided, sod that, I'm going to go and do this and I'm going to go and do that. And he thought that was totally the wrong advice for someone diagnosed with dementia. So, I think hopefully that there is a new message coming out, and it's nice to hear that that's what you've experienced as well, the change from the last 10 years to 5 years.
Yeah, learning new things is really important, because that's about neural pathways. So learning new things, even if you're not very good at it, it doesn't really matter. Just give it a go in that sense. And I think there's this thing that your memory is going to deteriorate, and that a lot of people forget things. That's not uncommon. We're talking about something that's beyond that as such.
Yeah.
And interesting enough, when we talk about stickers, I can remember a few years ago, some work around memory enabling. That's a term I coined, but there you go, which is remembering to remember, which is who reminds you to look at your post-its and your stickers.
Yeah.
So this is a journey about thinking, how do you get reminded to do things? So, and you may think that's just about dementia. It's not. I sometimes can't remember names. I'm terrible. I inherited it from my
I've
my
always
dad.
been bad at that.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's a phone there. There's Google. It's a computer. Do you know what I mean? You can put things in. And AI assistants are just on normal phones as such. But we're seeing more work in that space around AI assistants being able to prompt, being able to connect you to your supportive network as such. That's happening more and more in that sense, and we'll see that more often.
Absolutely,
around that development. And it's about how do you engage with that. So my dad's 91, he doesn't have dementia, and I talk to him on the phone and he'll go, on that thing, can you just check for
That's
me?
my favourite word.
So he lives in he lives in Leicester. I'm in Liverpool. We're on the phone and he's saying, can you check on that thing something like what happened in 1948 in relation to football or something like that, and this footballer who played for, and so he is engaging with it, but I've got to do it for him. I've got to do that mediation.
But he's remembering to do it, isn't he?
Is, yes.
He wants, he's having contact with you then, and then he's getting the story that he wants, and he'll get pleasure out of that story.
Yeah.
That remembering to remember and the reminder of the reminder is really interesting and something that we want to get into, because it was a few weeks ago now, we talked about learning new skills, and we said because we would do like this thing called Reminiscence Corner, and we watch a clip from a previous episode and then we talk about, which we'll do later if you can stick around for that. But it was about learning new skills, and I said, how did that land with you, Fran? He said, oh, well, I wouldn't remember the new skill, so I couldn't. And then I think I was like, well, look at you hosting this podcast. 4 or 5 months ago when you first co-hosted, you never would have interviewed and spoke to Grahame like you have today, because you've built that skill of how to be in this environment, how, when to listen, when to ask, how you want to ask. Like, it's unbelievable, like where you were then to where you are now. So, but it's framing that, isn't it, in terms of learning new skills, that you don't even realize that you have this ability to learn a new skill, but because it can be associated with memory. Oh, I can't remember, week to week.
Yeah.
Whereas I would guess if you were learning a musical instrument and you had a lesson every week, in 6 weeks, you'd probably be a little bit better than you were 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, you're right.
So I find that really fascinating. I don't know if you've had.
So that's about recall, isn't it? So, and something about awareness and recalling those things where you can lay new memories down. So people do. And there are occasions where people do learn to play the piano, but can't remember they've learned to play the piano, but can play the piano.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's about rehearsing cognitive rehabilitation. So the thing is to not avoid doing things, is to do things. And that's why journals are important as well. Because sometimes journals are important to remind you that you can do those things. There's a positive sense to that as well. But laying those things down. So, for example, driving or riding a bike, a lot of that's automatic, and a lot of things we do in life are very automatic. And sometimes that's why we can't remember.
An expectation, isn't it?
Well, that's why we can't remember names. So I can't remember names because I probably don't pay attention on names. They don't seem to be that important, but I'm very good with faces. So, and I recall faces very well, but not necessarily
the
name as such. But it doesn't stop me engaging with with people. It's just something that I do, and my dad does. I don't know quite why, but he can remember footballers from the 1940s and 50s. So there you go. But he can't remember my name. He keeps getting my name and calling me my brother's name or even my sister's name sometimes.
Well, depending on the week, I'm Liam, aren't I, Fran? Depending on what week it is, I'm Liam.
Oh yeah, he's Liam.
and that's fine, isn't it? Because the thing is, it's about just accepting people, isn't it? It's like, but when you've got a diagnosis like dementia, we pick up on it, don't we? Oh, you must be deteriorating because you can't remember a name. because we've got a diagnosis.
Well, in the episode last week, I was calling Meryl Marion.
Yeah.
And Marion was sat right listening
yeah.
to us. And I was recalling someone else's name and called her Marion, you know. So, yeah.
And it's the amount of people you meet in a day, isn't it?
Well, exactly,
Or you meet as you go along.
Yeah.
And then you just sort of get bogged down and think, oh, what's their name now?
And like you said, is it important that you call me Liam? No, it's not.
And then you get panicked because you think, oh, they'll think I wasn't listening, or I wasn't doing this, or I wasn't doing that. And I was thinking, oh, God, what's the name? What's the name? And then comes that, hey, thingy.
Well, we haven't talked about this, but I'm really glad you mentioned AI and also journaling, because the Leaf Story app that we launched a while ago, which was all around life story work, we're going to be launching a free version soon. And Adam's going to come on, my co-founder and business partner on the podcast, in a couple of weeks. And we've launched an AI-driven journaling tool that will be free, that you can sort of journal. I've been using it the last couple of days, testing it out. And I've been finding it really valuable for myself to reflect on the previous day. And we'd like to talk more about therapeutic stuff as well with you, and get your insights into some of the things that we've talked about, like the problem adaptation therapy that you did, the reminiscence therapy, and there was one other that you mentioned before, which I've now forgotten, but talk about all of the therapeutic aspects and some of the research and what your experience has been, if you don't mind, when we come back.
Great.
Okay.
Cool.
No
We'll
problem.
have a quick break and we'll come back. We really hope you're enjoying this podcast. We want this to be one of the best free resources for any family affected by dementia. With your help, we can build the biggest community in the world for supporting, guiding and comforting everyone who faces cognitive issues and the people around them. So please hit that subscribe button or share it with someone who needs it. Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Fran and Grahame, and we thought we'd talk a bit more about therapeutic and therapeutic interventions, because I'd emailed you before you came on and listed some of the ones that we know about, and it would be really nice to hear more from you. So if we kick off maybe with what you'd heard about what Fran had taken part in, which was problem adaptation therapy, which you said, Fran, has been a huge help.
Yeah. It was. I was a bit lost. It was early on in my diagnosis, and I was trying to get different things and, look up things, and, you're just looking at anything to see if it gives you any answers. And then I got asked, would I go into this research program? And basically what you done was you're talking about journals. This was like a daily journal, in fact, because you just wrote down what you were going to do for the day, and then you would do it. And then you would put the obstacles that were in your way and why you didn't actually complete that, and you didn't do it. And then it gave you, to say what you think you would have done better. And I used it every day, and it was just amazing. It made me get up and do more because I wanted to fill my sheet in properly. But it was absolutely, it just gave me, and the family, and my husband, he'd say, where are you going now? And I'd say, oh, I'm just off to such and such, such and such. I'm getting the bus, and then I'm going here, and then I'm doing this and doing that. And then I didn't go mad and do loads of things in the day, but I worked out what I was capable of and what I could push the boundaries a bit further with. And it was just, and when I was looking at why I hadn't done it, I had to be dead true, like, I put on it, couldn't be bothered, didn't feel like not doing it. And then, you got to the point where you didn't see much of that, because you were every day, you were thinking, oh, what can I put on that today? Mm-hmm. What can I do today? And then the other thing I'd do is I'd write a job for the house every day.
Right.
And things, just lots of different things, phone somebody, do this, do that, because you get a bit wrapped up in yourself at first when you've got it, and rightly so, because you think, oh, well, could I do that? Do I need to do that? But it taught me to plan, to see why I couldn't do it, or if it was an expectation that was too high at that point. And it was just great. And it had smileys on it and things, you know. It sounds a bit childish in one way, but it was well worth it. You could tick off a good smile and then you could tick off the angry one if I'd gone sod off, I'm not doing that today. And, you know, you could do that. And it just put me in a place that I've never stopped being in, really, since. You know, I know my boundaries. I know what I can do and what I can't do. I will try and push them, but if that doesn't work, I don't feel bad about it. I go back to it and do what I was doing with it, and then I move on to something else. So it was absolutely brilliant. I loved it. I've got all the stuff there still, and sometimes when I'm sorting out or doing something, I think, oh, that was a nice time, that.
So it's hard to argue that it's potentially something helpful for people, because obviously it's had a huge impact for you, Fran. But from what you'd heard about it or knew about it, because I know it was like a study that was relatively recent, sort of 4 or 5 years ago. And I know that what came out of that study is when they followed up with people, the cohort 18 months later, they decided that it wasn't worth the money because I guess it was expensive and things. So it'd be great to hear your thoughts on it and, your perspective.
Yeah, it's therapeutic approaches are always going to be a little bit of challenge in relation to how they're resourced. So having the therapists that are out there in relation to supporting individuals living with dementia. I suppose the thing is you could wrap therapies up into, so problem adaptation therapy is really good around emotional regulation, for example, in individuals that might feel depressed or anxious in relation to dementia. And obviously you've got cognitive rehearsal, you've got cognitive stimulation. It's all about keeping the mind active and going. And there are lots of things that you can do without necessarily having a therapist, but it's really useful to kind of be guided to begin with from that perspective. And it fits into what we tend not to talk about so much. And I was involved in a project called around dementia rehabilitation. Individuals were, and they weren't qualified therapists as such, but they were the workers, almost like what we'd call caseworkers, I suppose. And they would sit with the person and work out a plan of action to move forward, to do positive things in their life. And they didn't call it problem adaptation therapy. They didn't call it reminiscence therapy. They just thought that it was a case of setting something like a plan that was person-centered, and problem adaptation therapy works on the basis of being person-centered. So what works for you doesn't always work for other people as such. And anybody can do that. I think sometimes there's an element of confidence about those things, which is that if you can't find it in your area, you feel that you can't do it. But actually there's lots of resources, or should be more resources online that people can access, whether it be studies, for example, you've mentioned, so the Pathfinder study, you can find those things. You can Google problem adaptation therapy, and you'll find AI will tell you what it is and what works and what doesn't work from that perspective. Doesn't mean that if he says it doesn't work, you shouldn't give it a go. So there is an argument about in certain dementias it might not work. But that doesn't mean that you can't explore that and give it a go, because it might actually work for you. So there are a lot more resources out there. And I think you'll find that therapies, as they move more online, and will be about guiding individuals. That doesn't mean that face-to-face doesn't work, because it does. It's great having that contact. It just means that it's more of a mixed model, a blended type model for individuals going forward. And when we talk about things like life story work, or we talk about reminiscence, life story work was developed with children actually in relation to identity and their sense of being and belonging. And that's really useful. That's about journaling as well. And when you engage with a journal, that's about stimulating your thinking. So we talked about cognitive stimulation, thinking about things as we look at journal, that's something about reminiscence. And then we have something called ecotherapy, for example, which basically for most people is called gardening.
Oh my goodness. You're going to come up with next.
So doing stuff, we can have nice labels for them. But going out and doing stuff and being able to then engage with somebody to talk about that stuff and what have you learned? How's that moving you forward? What did it make you feel? Are you avoiding it? Sometimes we have to do things that we would like to avoid. And things like, for example, getting dressed is really important. And it's a skill as well. And we need to, and cook. And we need to cook safely. Well, there are lots of devices out there that support individuals to do that. So cognitive rehabilitating is reablement is really important concepts.
That's true,
moving
isn't it?
forward.
Yeah.
Continue to do those things. The difference is that you need some kind of scaffolding there. So we talk about psychological scaffolding, but we can also think about technological scaffolding or therapeutic scaffolding, which is that the community, your family, the technologies that you may or may not engage with, and we'll see that more often that people engage in the technologies, can scaffold support you to be able to achieve the things, the intentions that you set down that you want to do.
I really like that term, scaffolding. I think we're going to pinch that.
It is. I know by my journals, because I said to you before, I started a journal maybe a few weeks after I was diagnosed, and I've got 5 now. And when you're sitting there of a night writing it up and you think, well, that's good. And you're looking at what you're doing, and then you go back to the beginning of the year and you think, well, I'm still doing as much as I started off with in the thing of the year. I mean, I might write stupid things in it, like, at Easter, ate too many Easter eggs, and stuff at my chocolate face. But it makes me laugh then, and I think about that day where I was putting them in the fridge and getting just cold enough, and then thinking, I'm not going to eat no more. And then, it just reminds me then the kids are come for dinner, and, it just reminds me that my life is going quite well, and I'm doing things that I'm able to do, and the things that I can't do, I don't worry about. But it's just, and it reminds me of when the kids came, when I went somewhere different or I achieved something, and, it just keeps me, and the grandchildren have grown up with me diaries more or less now. So I have, I don't look at them all the time. I put them in a cupboard. But when I need to get them out for something, someone will say, what were we doing on that day? And because I need such and such, and I'll go into my diary because I know I'll have put it down. And it just gives me that feeling of I'm safe. I've got my family, I've got my friends, I've got people who look after me, I've got things that I'm doing now. And, and I have memory boxes and a sign when I go out for something to eat or anything with anyone and stuff like that. I write on the back where we were, what we done and stuff like that. And I just keep those as well. I think the reminiscence, what you're talking about, is just that. It's a simple thing to do. It doesn't cost anything. You don't, have to, and it just makes me laugh. And I'll put down on it sometimes, and we paid £25 for a glass of wine. Disgusting. And I'll remember that conversation we all had about, Frank getting a glass of wine, which he didn't know was £25. But when we got it, the kids had took us out to San Carlo. And we were, just, it makes you laugh as well about the things that...
And they're good chemicals, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
They're good chemicals, aren't they, when you're laughing and have humour and you're interacting.
Yeah.
They're all good.
Yeah.
They're all good chemicals.
Yeah, I don't ever put anything bad in it. I don't put anything. I'll put, not at the best of days today, but this is what I've done. And my day turned out, okay. Or I'll just put, not a good day today, but tomorrow will be better.
Yeah.
I don't put things that, that I'd go back on and look and go,
Yeah.
You've got to put something in there that makes you think, oh, well, yeah, okay, I had that bad day that day, but look at the next day that I had.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So they are brilliant journals.
Do you put in strategies that work for you? So if you've had a bad day, you might think, well, if I do this, this will change the way that I feel.
Yeah.
So that's really important,
Yeah.
isn't it? Understanding those strategies.
I would put in there, well, I didn't have the greatest day, but Frank and I went out for a walk and we went in the park and it was windy and it was this and that. By the time we got home, we were, laughing about something, or it was just felt different, even though I still felt a little bit. I was so much better for that.
Yeah.
And things like that. That's
something like about building behaviours. Then
Yeah.
is that like reflecting on, okay, I wasn't feeling the best, but I still did this, and when I did come in from the walk, I felt a bit better. So, and rereading that and journaling that is that behaviour, is that getting those behaviour. Okay, I've woke up a bit today. Oh, what was it I did when I went for the walk with Frank in the park. Frank, should we go for a walk in the park? And it's building those behaviours, isn't it, to sort of manage, your day-to-day life, I guess, and what works and what doesn't.
Some days I'll put, just couldn't be bothered today, just had a day.
Yeah.
And leave it at that. And then just go back to the next day. Because in normal life, we all have bad days.
Absolutely.
We all have days where we just don't want to get up, or we don't want to get off the couch or something like that. But it's...
Or you're hungover on the couch.
I don't get hungover these days. But it's just that, as I say, that research thing that I've done set me up fine. It worked for me. It mightn't work for someone else because it just won't.
Yeah.
But it was something that I like doing.
It's all worth giving a go, isn't it?
Yeah, it's worth giving anything
I think it's fascinating what you're saying about giving it a go, and that you are right. Now when you Google things, especially things like if you Googled problem adaptation therapy, if you Googled reminiscence therapy, you would actually get an AI summary of that straight away, wouldn't you? And it would have tips or how you go about it. And so actually it's in the last only year, it's because Google's only started adding AI aspects to something when you Google it. It's only in the last year that now all of these therapies and a way to try it is so accessible. And like you said, reminiscence therapy, problem adaptation therapy, a lot of these things, it can tell you how to do it. And okay, you wouldn't have the specific sheets of what the therapist gave you with smiley faces, but you could probably find them online and you could probably print them off. And even if not, you could at least draw some things out and get assistance with that to actually set up your own problem adaptation therapy sheets if it was something you were interested in trying, depending on where you are.
I think, and as well at some stage in reminiscent therapy, some of it at first I didn't like. I got I've got a lovely picture of Frank and I, and it was after when I first went into me, or what do they call it when you go into your retirement, and it's staged retirement or something like that. And I got me pension.
Yeah.
And so we went on the Orient Express for our treat out of it all. It was only a day, but we went on the Orient Express and we had the best day ever. And a friend of mine made me a picture of it in a jigsaw puzzle. And I loved it, just put it up and loved it. I showed you it.
You did when we visited, yeah.
And now I took it down for a while because I look so different. I looked younger, obviously, but it wasn't about that really. It was just Frank and I were just on this little trip of a lifetime, and we both looked really well. We both were drinking champagne, and it was just amazing. And for a little while, I couldn't look at it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to look at it. It was like that person had gone.
Yeah.
And I was so, I said to Frank, take that down.
So how did you work through that?
And well, actually, when he took it down, broke the frame, so it hasn't gone back up. But I've got it in the back bedroom. But I look at it now and I think, what an amazing day that was. Wasn't I lucky to have that day? Because that day, you know, I am getting older. It doesn't matter. I'd still look different. Physically wise, it's just the mental bit that's different. But it was just us. That was us. That was our best day.
Yeah.
And I just like it again. But at first, I found it quite distressing.
So why do you like it again? What changed that?
Well, I like the fact my husband's not well at the moment, but he's doing okay.
Yeah.
I just look at it and it's in the back room. So when I'm getting ready, it's just there, and I start laughing to myself and thinking, oh my God, that day we were just so funny. We had just the best day ever, and we'd done this and we'd done that. And yeah, I am older now, but I had that opportunity. And yeah, I do feel a little sad because that's what happens in life. You grow older, you do different things, and at first it was like my expectations then when I was that young was that Frank and I had just, you know, grow together, we'd retire, we'd do this, we'd do that, because we did have a really active life going away and doing things and stuff. And now I look at it and I think, I just love that. I remember getting ready. I remember what I wore. I bought 2 of them blouses because I liked them so much. And then I've just grew myself to like it again because I thought I can't look at that picture every time and think, oh.
It's interesting when you said I get to do that or I got to do that. And I listened to a growth mindset podcast, and he's talked on a couple of episodes about reframing things in terms of, oh, I get to go and film this podcast today. Tomorrow I'll get to go and play football. And if you frame it in that way, there's obviously people like with you supporting people with motor neuron disease or other diseases where like they might not get to go and do that. So to reframe everything in your life, like I get to go and pick up my son later from school.
Yeah.
You know, you get to reminisce on that photo because you got to have that day.
Yeah.
It's like a really interesting, like psychological way to perceive
But
things.
at first I cried when I looked
hard,
at it. I was just so, you know, what's happening here? But as I say now, I've built myself up to look at it as something, you know, that we were so lucky to have, and something we never thought we'd have when we were younger with the kids. And, you know, we never thought we'd go on the Orient Express or anything like that. So, but
you changed that, didn't you?
Yeah.
You changed that. So that's about your mindset. You changed that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were motivated, so that's your drive, your inner drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've changed that, haven't you? And then you've changed the way that you view something, that experience.
Yeah.
And how that's gone from, I feel quite negative, but I feel quite positive now. And it's something that I can learn from and move forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you look at, there's lots of things out there talk about self-help and guide you in relation to those kinds of approaches. And I'm certainly not saying that we shouldn't be engaging with therapists. So it's just there's not a lot of therapists out there for people to engage with.
No.
And that's, you know, when we're talking about waiting lists and we're talking about memory clinics and what is available, that's the challenge. And the question to ask is, do you then wait around in the world that we live in until you find somebody that can coach you and mentor you through that, those challenges, or is there other alternatives out there? And I'm not saying technology is always the answer.
Yeah.
It's not, but it can be part of the scaffold that supports an individual to move forward. And also it's about the confidence, because it's interesting, your inner therapist, and you wouldn't see it as that, but your inner therapist, your inner dialogues talked you through that and moved you forward. Now, you wouldn't see it as that.
No, I wouldn't. I just wanted to make it better. I didn't want to look at that. And I only put it up that day you came.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then took it down again. And then I thought, what am I doing?
Fascinating.
And I thought that was, and the kids love it as well, you know, and my friend went, it was personalised to me, and, you know, I thought she took a lot of thought and consideration over getting that. And
You appreciate it in so many different ways now.
Yeah, I do, honestly.
Which really comes, I think,
just waiting to get a new frame for it.
I think it comes down to your mindset, and I wanted to, just briefly touch on mindset, and it's complicated though, isn't it, to go from one to the other. But I think with George, with yourself, Fran, with Tom, with Dawn, who we had on the podcast, there's such a positive mindset in the Sedgemoor group that you're all part of. Well, George isn't part of that, but there's a very positive mindset within his group. And it's fascinating that I think that the mindset can have such a huge impact on people. And hopefully this podcast is helping listeners to think about their own mindset in terms of challenges.
Yeah, so peer-to-peer therapy is really important. So learning from others that have had similar or are having similar experiences is something that is really important. So you might say, well, Grahame, you're an expert. I'm not living it. I can kind of give some advice and support and talk things through as such. However, I'm not living it. You're living it, and you've got really good examples of how you've worked through difficult times. And individuals can, when they're looking at that, can say, well, actually, that's similar to me, and maybe there is hope.
And that's what you need.
Yeah.
That's what we all need when we're diagnosed. It's like someone physically gets diagnosed with a broken leg to get a splint or a crutch or something like that. We don't have a disease that you can see. So, you know, you need people who, well, you can see it later on physically, but you're not, as you say, you're not in their mind, and it's easier. Well, I wouldn't say easier, but it's nicer to be with people. We only go once a month to Sedgemoor, but we all have a WhatsApp group. We all have, you know, stuff like that. And it's nice just to get some clues or to see. And the other thing is, you know, you see how people are coping with people who've been going and are deteriorating. So you're getting to know what to do about that as well. And it's just such a good group, isn't it?
It's amazing.
And I'm sure there's lots more around.
Inspirational.
It's just finding them, isn't it?
Yeah, some areas are far better than others.
Yeah.
It tends to be a bit of a lottery in that sense about what is available, and also depending on what your diagnosis is as well. So some areas are really good in terms of rare dementias and early onset. In some ways, we're very probably lucky is the wrong word, but we are lucky in the sense that we have the Walton Centre, for example.
Yeah. No.
So we have a neurological centre, which is really, really helpful, and that is kind of pushing things forward in that sense. Alzheimer's as a diagnosis, a term that's used, which is effectively a catch-all for lots of things. We're not so lucky in terms of the Northwest, and that's the challenge in relation to services. There's some great things that are going on, and there are certainly lots of Age Concern, for example, do some work as well.
Yeah.
And we sometimes forget about that. We just think Alzheimer's Society, but Age Concerns. But there are other spaces and areas that are really supportive. There are, let's not forget, there are companies, there are charities, there are the voluntary sector that are doing some great work. Some areas better than others.
Yeah.
And I was at an Alzheimer's Society event last week, and some great stuff that's moving forward. But you could argue that it's bit patchworky at the moment.
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
I think it's what we want to think about with the podcast is how can we grow a listener community, and then how can we bring things into people's lives. If you live in Snowdonia, if you live in Oban in the north of Scotland, and we're always talking about, peer-to-peer support and finding your community and how important it is. Well, you might not be lucky enough to be surrounded by even 10 people with young onset dementia. But that doesn't mean that you can't necessarily go out and find a community in a different way, whether it's setting up a walk that you invite people to once a week that might be friends or family or people that live in your local area. So it's something that we're really passionate about, is how can we think about those things. And because community's been so important for people like George and yourself, and Tom, is like, how do we, through the podcast community, give people the scaffolding or the tools to set up their own little communities? And it doesn't have to necessarily always be people with dementia, because being isolated and lonely is obviously not a great thing. And if you have got young onset and you live in the north of Scotland and there isn't that many people around, you might struggle to find them. So how can you find online communities? How can you set up a little walk each week so that you're connecting more just in general? Not necessarily learning about dementia, but talking. So it's definitely something we're interested in.
I think you speak to everybody. I spoke to someone yesterday who rang me about an appointment for something. And I said to her, could you just take your time because I've got Alzheimer's, sorry. And she said, oh, my auntie's got that. So she said, do you mind me asking? And I just had a chat with her about it. There's someone everywhere who is affected with some form, not everybody, but a big majority of people who know someone who has got Alzheimer's, got dementia, and she said to me, I don't know what to do for her. Don't know what to do. And
you told her about the podcast?
Yeah, I told her. Yeah. I said, do I do podcasts? I said, go on that.
Yeah.
So give her the podcast.
Social prescribing. That's
Absolutely.
where we want to end up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll have a little break there and we'll come back for Reminiscence Corner.
Okie dokie.
Thanks, everyone.
We hope you're enjoying listening to our podcasts.
If you'd like to come on the show,
you can get in touch with us.
If you're a scientist or a health expert.
If you're living with dementia or you're supporting anyone with dementia.
Then drop us a line.
You can email us on hello@fightingdementiapod.com.
If you ask someone maybe living dementia, can they lift their arms up? They can't do it, but you say, can you catch that imaginary ball for me? And muscle memory kicks in.
Yeah.
So what I used,
that's really good.
So what I said to the wife was, I was like, tell you what, when we do the visualization section, get up and practice your golf swings together in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so they used to get up because he was quite steady on his feet, and he'd practice his golf swings. And what I got was, and I'll never forget this, the wife called me and said the son had taken his dad to the golf range. He went, I can't believe that my dad knows how to swing a golf club.
Oh,
and that was their
amazing,
bonding activity. And I think things like that are powerful. That's what I aim to do. I do the program, but then I'm tailoring it to the individuals that are there in my class as well. So how can I help them and make that breakthrough? And then the loved ones will receive the benefits. Hazel, who one of our awards is named after, she was in her room for 2 years and she wouldn't come out, and Love to Move brought her back out of her room and into the group.
Wow.
It's brilliant. And she began feeding herself again using her hands. It's stories like that that really build what we do.
So that was...
She was about the neuro fact of it, wasn't she?
Yes, so she's Nicola from Love to Move, which is run by the British Gymnastics Foundation, and they train people who support people living with dementia, normally in professional settings, but also anyone that came to the Sedgemoor group, didn't they? And talking about how can you build up those movements back again. So yeah, I'd just like to get your thoughts and your reaction to that clip.
Yeah, so dance and movement is also important and it's been studied quite a bit. And dancing in the kitchen, if you can, is good. But you can also do chair movements as well. That's really important. But moving is because movement is. And I'm not an expert in that sense. Well, movement is it's a physical thing, but it's also a mental thing as well. And there's the conversation about muscle memory is fascinating, that people can do things. So individuals with dementia can drive, and you might think, well, they shouldn't drive, or should they, depending in terms of their cognitive abilities, but they can still drive, because it's about all those automatic things that we do. Some of the challenges are where cognition is disrupted, and the individual might have to think through a situation, and that's where they might struggle.
Yeah.
But where it's kind of, you could argue, a safe activity where people are not at risk, or physically the individual themselves is not at risk. So that's why it's useful to prescribe those types of movements. Certainly see lots of dance type groups, but also thinking about other movements like choirs. So choirs are very, very popular, and that's, singing. So we can all sing, even if we sing badly.
Yeah.
And badly, and I dance badly.
but if do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If you can do it, do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's something you do badly. If it's a new skill and it keeps you active, then give it a go.
Absolutely. There's line dancing by yours, Fran. Did you know this?
And I do it. He keeps saying to me, I don't know me left from me right.
One day we're going just to see what it's like. And
I'll just go like that.
And how did that clip land for you, Fran, in terms of... Yeah.
Oh, it was good, because it was a good day that day. She's lovely,
yeah,
absolutely
she's great.
lovely. And it was just about, as she said, like you just said, it's always there. It's just getting out to do it again.
Yeah.
And it's not even a confidence thing. I think it's just something to have some fun. Do something different. Change what you've done for that night and just enjoy it.
Yeah.
I can't sing for toffee, I'm telling you, I cannot. But it's like when you're in mass, sometimes when you go to a church for something, and I'll sing at the psalm. I don't even know it, but I'll sing it and I'll think, oh, then people must be thinking, oh, where's that cat?
But it's about doing it, isn't it?
It's having the fun of doing it.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the more physical stuff you can do, whether it's creative, whether it's singing, whether it's dancing. Dr. Ivan, who'd been on as well, who's a neuropsychiatrist, had said, what would you do if you were diagnosed? Yeah, I'd take up dancing, because it's got the brain going, it's got the body moving. So there we go. Line dancing
You'd
soon,
be like Fred Astaire.
at some point in the next 6 months.
I'll be Ginger Rogers.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and thanks to Grahame for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for
Lovely
inviting
to meet
me.
you.
Yeah, no, been really cool episode.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks so much for listening today. I hope that anyone gets any help out of this. You've enjoyed it.
Thanks again for listening today. Just a reminder to do your own research. We always take guests, scientists, researchers, people supporting people living with dementia at their word. They might talk about things that are new in science. They might talk about things that have really helped them. So just a reminder, do your own research. And thanks again for listening.